The night sky is full of wondrous marvels to behold stars, constellations, and even distant galaxies. You do not need to be an expert astronomer or even have a telescope to observe these astronomical objects. I set out on a mission to observe a constellation with my naked eyes and to document my findings. Today, I will be discussing the constellation of Ursa Major. I went outside last night, May 14th at 9:30 p.m. to observe the night sky. I quickly found Ursa Major to the north of my house. The transparency level was about a 3. It was somewhat clear and there were lots of clouds and haze. I was able to locate 3 to 4 of the Little Dipper stars, including Polaris. The relative stillness of the air in the upper atmosphere was between a 3 and a 4. The more distant, less luminous stars would twinkle and almost disappear for a second, but then I could see them again. The brighter stars were twinkling like crazy. The wind at my house in Cedar Hill gets pretty strong, and last night I'd say it was about a 6. The large branches of the trees were swaying and you could hear the leaves shaking. However, the nice thing about my house in Cedar Hill is that we're further out by the lake, so there's no glare from the neighbor's house or street lights, and so it's easy to see the stars on a clear night. The sky glow last night was about a 6, but not because of the city lights, but because of the moon. It was super bright last night and it illuminated a lot of the clouds in the sky, making it hard to see some of the stars from Ursa Major. Since the weather was unfavorable to see all of Ursa Major, I used a sky app on my phone to locate the rest of the stars that I could not see. The 19 stars that make up Ursa Major include the following, and I have them listed here, connect the dot style 1 through 19. So we have Alkid, which is the third brightest star of Ursa Major. We have Mizar, the constellation's fourth brightest star, which is also a famous double star with its optical companion Alcor. Alioth is the brightest star of Ursa Major and the 33rd brightest star in the sky. Megrez, this is where the Hubble Deep Field is located, just to the northeast of this star. Dubhe is the 35th brightest star in the sky and the second brightest of Ursa Major. There's Merak, Fad, Alcafra, Psi-Uma, Tinea Australis, Alua Borealis, Alua Australis, Tau Su, Musquida, Gamma Uma, Phi Uma, Saryur, Talitha Borealis, and Tinea Borealis. The stars Merak and Dubhe are known as the pointer stars, and by visually tracing a line through them and continuing, you'll find Polaris, the North Star, which is right around here. As far as characteristics go, Ursa Major is one of the largest constellations, occupying 3% of the total sky in the northern celestial hemisphere. It's bordered by 8 other constellations, which form a 28-sided irregular polygon that's between right destination coordinates of 8 hours 8.3 minutes and 14 hours 29 minutes, and the declination of 28.3 degrees and 73.14 degrees. One of the notable features of the constellation Ursa Major is that it contains 7 bright stars that resemble a ladle, forming another smaller constellation known as the Big Dipper. In Ursa Major, the Big Dipper is drawn to represent the hindquarters and the tail of the Great Bear. There are several galaxies that can be found in Ursa Major, and these include the pair Mizar 81 and Mizar 82, M108 and M109, Pinwheel Galaxy M101, M97, which is a planetary nebula called the Owl Nebula, and that can be found along the bottom bowl of the Big Dipper. NGC 3079, which has a horseshoe-shaped structure in its center, and that indicates that there's actually a presence of a supermassive black hole. Eiswick 18 is a young dwarf galaxy, and it is the youngest known galaxy in our visible universe. Ursa Major was also one of the 48 constellations first listed by the 2nd century AD astronomer Ptolemy. It's been mentioned by poets such as Homer and Shakespeare, and even Vincent van Gogh painted it. In Homer's The Odyssey, it notes that it is the sole constellation that does not sink below the horizon, so it's used as a celestial reference point for navigation since you can locate the North Star from its position. In mythology, the constellation of Ursa Major has been seen as a bear by many distinct civilizations. One of my favorite stories of how it came to be is that of Roman mythology, where Jupiter, the king of the gods, lusts after a young woman named Callisto. Jupiter's jealous wife Juno transforms Callisto into a bear so that Jupiter no longer lusts after her. While in bear form, Callisto encounters her son Arceus, who almost shoots her. And to avert the tragedy, Jupiter turns Arceus into a bear too, and he puts both of them in the sky, forming Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. The constellation Ursa Major is much more than a group of stars that just happen to make a bear when playing Connect the Dots. It's a full-on space wonderland, full of new and old galaxies with a sad story of love and jealousy, reminding me that nothing is exactly as it seems on the surface and to look deeper to find the true beauty in things. And remember, you don't have to be an expert or have a fancy telescope to observe these marvels. Just go outside on a clear, dark night and look up. What wonders are waiting for you to discover? So I chose Ursa Major because it was one of the very first constellations I ever learned about. I thought it was really cool that you could play Connect the Dots with the stars in the sky to make images appear, and I'd always try to come up with my own. Whenever I'm outside, the first thing I do is find the Great Bear. And the most interesting thing I learned was actually how many galaxies there are in the constellation. I always assumed that it was just stars. I never thought to go deeper and see if there were distant galaxies, and there's so many of them. What's crazy is that the youngest galaxy and even the Hubble Deep Field are in the constellation of Ursa Major. So, thank you.